Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to go deep?
Always.
Today we're diving into the world of sound and silence.
Sounds intriguing.
It is, especially with John Cage's 4-Foot-33, a piece of music made entirely of silence.
John Cage, always pushing boundaries.
I know, right? Silence as music. It's baffling at first.
Definitely makes you think, doesn't it?
That's why we're here. We're going to uncover what makes this silent piece so groundbreaking.
We'll explore the science and philosophy behind silence, too. It's more than just nothing, you know?
I'm all ears.
Well, 433 isn't just about the absence of sound.
So it's not just sitting there in a quiet room.
Not exactly. It's about changing how we think about music.
Okay, how so?
Cage wanted us to pay attention to the sounds we usually ignore.
Like what?
Coughs, rustles, even the hum of the AC. They all become part of the composition.
So instead of a melody, you're listening to the environment.
Precisely. And it gets even more interesting when you look at what happens in our brains during those silences.
Really? What happens?
Our brains don't just switch off. They actually become more active in some ways.
Silence is like a brain workout.
You could say that. Studies show that silence can even help grow new brain cells in the hippocampus.
The hippocampus?
Yeah, it's the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So silence boosts brain power.
It can. Not only that, it can boost creativity and help us focus better. Think about it. When you need to solve a tough problem, where do you go?
Honestly, I usually head out for a walk in the park.
There you go. It's quiet and peaceful, right?
Yeah, it helps me think.
Exactly. Quiet time allows your brain to wander, to make connections it might not otherwise, like giving your mind space to breathe.
So all that peace and quiet is actually helping my brain.
It is, and there's scientific evidence to back it up.
That's incredible. But how does this all tie back to 4-Foot-33? Is it just about sitting in a concert hall, listening to the AC?
Well, Cage took this idea of silence and made it a performance. He wanted the audience to experience this heightened awareness, this shift in perception in a structured setting.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So 4-Foot-33 isn't just about the sounds, it's about the time you spend listening to them.
Right, it's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of intentional silence.
And what happens during that time?
Something really interesting happens to our perception of time.
You know, I've noticed that time feels different when things are quiet. Sometimes it drags on forever, sometimes it flies by.
That's exactly what Cage was playing with. He realized that without musical cues, our internal clock goes a bit haywire.
So without a beat or rhythm, our sense of time gets unreliable.
Precisely. It becomes a more fluid, subjective experience.
So 4-Foot-3 is a kind of time-bending experience then.
You could say that. And this all ties back to a larger philosophical question Cage was grappling with, the question of nothingness.
Oh, okay, let's unpack that. What did he mean by nothingness? Was he saying that true silence doesn't exist?
Well, Cage believed there's always something happening, even when there's no intentional music.
Like background noise.
Even more than that. The hum of the refrigerator, your own breath, even thoughts flitting through your mind. There's always a soundscape, even in silence.
So silence isn't empty, it's full of subtle sounds we might not notice otherwise.
Exactly. It's something you can experience yourself. Think about the last time you were in a quiet place. Maybe outdoors in nature.
Let me think. I was in a forest once and it was so still.
What did you hear? What did you feel?
At first, I thought it was totally silent, but then I started noticing the wind in the leaves, birds chirping, my own footsteps.
There you go. Those sounds become even more vivid when we're in attentive silence.
Like our senses are heightened.
Exactly. When we're not bombarded with noise, we can appreciate the subtleties.
Makes sense. It's like when you're in a dark room, your eyes adjust.
That's a great analogy. In silence, our ears adjust, and we become more attuned to our sonic environment.
So Cage is saying silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's a doorway to a whole other world of auditory experience.
Exactly. And our brains are wired to appreciate it, even if we don't always realize it. It's not just about the sounds themselves, though. It's about what happens inside us when we listen.
What do you mean?
Silence. It allows us to become aware of our thoughts, memories, and emotions.
It's like silencing the outside world to tune into your inner world.
Yeah, like hearing our mind's own soundtrack, usually drowned out by daily life.
Does that mean Cage wanted everyone to just sit there and think their own thoughts for 4 minutes and 33 seconds?
Well, that's the beauty of it. 4-Foot-33 isn't about dictating what you should hear or think.
So what is it about then?
It's about creating a space for you to have your own unique experience.
So like one person might hear the AC humming.
Right, and another person might be distracted by their own thoughts.
Someone else might feel a sense of peace and stillness.
It's all valid, you see.
So everyone in the audience is essentially co-creating the piece with the performer.
You got it. And it raises an interesting question.
What's that?
Is music only in the mind of the performer, or does it depend on the listener?
I never thought of it that way.
Cage believed the listener plays an active role, especially in a piece like 4'3'3".
So it's not just about the performer's silence, it's about our own active listening.
Exactly. We're brought into the creative process in a whole new way.
That is radical.
It is. And it makes you think about the difference between this and noise-canceling headphones.
How so?
Noise-canceling headphones block out the world.
Right.
4'33" is about opening up to it in all its unpredictable, chaotic glory.
It's like Cage is saying, here's some silence, now make something of it.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to tell the audience what to hear, just creating space for their own experience.
Now, this might seem like a total left turn, but I read Cage was also a pioneer of electronic music.
He was.
Seems like a big contrast to 443, though.
Maybe on the surface, but Cage was fascinated by the full spectrum of sound.
What do you mean?
He saw beauty and meaning in both noise and silence.
So it wasn't about choosing one over the other.
Right, it was about balance between the two.
He was pushing boundaries wherever he went.
He was.
But how did people react to 4'33" when it was first performed? Were they into it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Really?
People were outraged.
What? Why?
They walked out, booed, wrote terrible reviews.
No way.
Some people thought it was a joke, a prank, even an insult to music.
I can see that.
Imagine, you're all dressed up for a concert, expecting beautiful music,
Yeah.
and then nothing.
Just silence.
It was definitely shocking for anyone expecting a piano recital.
I bet it takes a certain kind of open-mindedness to appreciate something like that.
It does.
You gotta be willing to let go of your ideas about what music should be.
And you have to be willing to participate in the experience.
Because with 4'33", the listener is as much a part of the performance as the performer.
Exactly.
It's like he's saying, don't just sit there waiting, get involved, create your own experience.
And that message resonates with me.
How so?
It reminds me that art isn't a spectator sport. It's active, participatory.
The more you engage, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And even though 4'33" was written over 70 years ago, it's still relevant today.
You think so?
I do.
Why?
In a world that's so noisy and chaotic, 4'33" offers us a chance to step back, to tune in, to rediscover the power of silence.
Speaking of which, you mentioned earlier how silence can warp our sense of time.
Absolutely. It's not just sound that changes. Our experience of time shifts as well.
So it's like time becomes this fluid thing instead of fixed and objective.
Exactly. And that could be disorienting, especially in a society obsessed with measuring everything.
It can be liberating, though, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. When we let go of that need to control time, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, new ways of experiencing the world.
I know. I've had moments where I'm so absorbed in something, I lose track of time completely.
Exactly. Those moments of flow where we're fully present, they're often characterized by a distorted sense of time.
And silence can help us find those moments.
It can.
So, big takeaway. What can our listeners learn from John Cage and his Silent Symphony?
One of the most important lessons is that silence is not empty.
What is it, then?
It's a space full of potential for reflection, creativity, deeper awareness.
And we can all access that, right?
We can, regardless of musical taste or artistic inclinations.
It's like that saying, in the stillness, there is movement.
There's so much happening beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered.
And that discovery doesn't require anything special, just a willingness to be present, to listen, to embrace the unexpected. It's like Cage is giving us a new set of ears, almost.
Yeah, a new way of listening to the world.
And a new appreciation for silence.
Right, because in those quiet moments, when we're not distracted, we can really connect with ourselves.
And maybe even tap into a deeper level of creativity.
Exactly. There's a reason so many artists, writers, musicians throughout history have sought out silence.
They needed that inspiration.
They did. It allows them to clear their minds, access those deeper parts of themselves where creativity lives.
So it's not just appreciating the silence itself, it's about what that silence unlocks within us.
You got it. Silence is like fertile ground.
Fertile ground.
Yeah, where new ideas can take root and grow.
I like that.
It's a space where we connect with intuition, imagination, our purpose even.
That's powerful. And it makes me think we can experience silence in so many ways, not just in a concert hall listening to 4'33".
Of course. Silence is in nature and meditation, a quiet moment with a good book, even.
It's everywhere if we just notice it.
It is.
So maybe the real challenge isn't finding silence, it's making room for it in our lives.
That's a great point. We live in a culture that values constant stimulation, noise, busyness.
But you're saying it's important to carve out quiet time.
I think it's more important than ever for our mental and emotional well-being.
Like hitting the reset button for our brains.
It is a chance to recharge, reconnect with what matters.
And remember, silence isn't the enemy of sound.
Right, it's the other half, the yin to the yang.
Without silence, sound wouldn't have the same impact.
Think of it like the spaces between words, the pauses that give a sentence meaning.
That's deep.
Silence gives sound context, allows us to appreciate it more.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from 4'33" to the impact of silence on our brains.
We have.
What would you say to someone who's skeptical about 4'33", who thinks it's pretentious nonsense?
I'd say approach it with an open mind. Listen not just with your ears, but with your whole being.
Don't just go through the motions.
No, because 433 isn't just music. It's an invitation to experience the world differently.
To slow down, tune in, discover the magic in those spaces between the notes.
Exactly.
Like Cage is giving us permission to find beauty in unexpected places, even without traditional music.
And to realize those spaces, those moments of silence, are just as important as the sounds.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I hope you'll all seek out more silence in your own lives, see what you discover in those quiet moments.
Maybe you'll hear a new kind of music.
Or find some peace and stillness.
Or maybe, just maybe, you'll find, like John Cage, that silence itself is the most profound music of all.